Good morning. I'm Jim Harden, District Attorney for Durham County. And I'm here to present the case of the people against Michael Peterson.
Welcome to MsMojo, and today we'll be discussing the shocking true story of the staircase.
Was this just a terrible, tragic, deathly fall down a staircase? Or was it murder?
For this video, we'll be looking at the scandalous and outrageous tale behind HBO Max's dramatized true crime miniseries. Are you watching The Staircase? Let us know in the comments. In December 2001, emergency services received a frantic call from novelist Michael Peterson claiming that his wife Kathleen had fallen down the stairs. However, when the authorities arrived, she had passed.
Kathleen's dead.
The nature of her injuries cast doubt over his initial story, and he was arrested. The miniseries starring Toni Collette and Colin Firth delves into this mysterious case and what unfolded.
Michael, what's going on? Are you speechless?
No, never.
So what did Peterson allege happened? Well, he said he had been in the backyard at the time of the incident and was therefore unable to hear anything going on in the house.
Why shut out the day before it is done?
Because some of us have jobs. I gotta get some stuff done before bed.
Huh? You take a pill? Help you sleep?
He claimed that a mix of Valium and alcohol might have been to blame for what happened. However, the medical examiner refuted his story, saying Kathleen's injuries were not ones one might receive after a fall.
She had little cuts and little scratches on her face that made no sense with the fall. Also on her arms, there were cuts and contusions.
It was also reported that her blood alcohol level was so low when the incident occurred that she could have passed a breathalyzer test.
I just found her there. She was breathing, and then she wasn't.
Meanwhile, Peterson's claims that his wife was still breathing during his first emergency call also raised suspicion. By the time the paramedics arrived, the blood had apparently dried, suggesting that some time had passed since her fall. The detectives also noted how neatly staged the scene appeared. The details of the matter led the prosecution to believe that a blunt object was used to kill Kathleen.
Dr. Radish reports this was not the mere falling down steps and banging into them. This was someone who'd been badly beaten.
Michael Peterson was ultimately arrested, and in July of 2003, his first trial began. Michael and Kathleen, their children from respective former relationships, and two more adopted daughters seemed like they were the perfect happy family.
We're not perfect, God knows, but we stick together. And we love each other.
Mr. Peterson was a Vietnam War vet, novelist, and failed Durham mayoral candidate. In fact, their life before that fateful night has been painted as pretty picture perfect. So what could have been his motive?
They had a great life. They made great friends, they threw great parties, and Peterson loved to hold court.
The prosecution chose to focus on the fact that they had uncovered that Peterson was bisexual and might have been having extramarital affairs.
This added a whole new layer to this case.
The find prompts detectives to reconsider Peterson's actions the night Kathleen died.
Regardless of this and the fact that the argument has more recently been framed as biphobic, the prosecution used this angle to impugn Peterson's character.
I just can't imagine she would have accepted this in her home. In her marriage.
They believed that Kathleen had uncovered photos of naked men on his computer, as well as interactions with a male escort. They argued that he killed her after she confronted him over her findings.
And Michael looked at her and he saw his meal ticket. She was the income, and she was calling it quits.
Another consideration was that the family was in serious debt and that he plotted this crime for the insurance payout.
They have 3 daughters in college. The 2 older boys of Michael Peterson are needing financial support. They have at least $143,000 in credit card debt. How are they supporting themselves? Well, the answer is Kathleen Peterson.
One especially interesting detail from the trial involved the pair's adopted daughters, Martha and Margaret. For some years, Peterson lived in Germany with his first wife, Patricia.
Michael was working on books, and Patty had a job working at a military base in Germany as a teacher.
That's where they befriended the girls' parents, Elizabeth and George Ratliff. George passed away, and in 1985, Elizabeth was discovered lifeless at the bottom of her staircase.
Michael told the authorities that she was suffering from a lot of headaches, and it was very possible that she had gotten dizzy and just fallen when she started going down the stairs.
After that, Michael became her daughter's legal guardian. She was believed to have suffered a stroke, but given the circumstances surrounding Kathleen's passing, they conducted a post-mortem examination. Elizabeth's death was then ruled a homicide. It didn't help that Peterson had been at Ratliff's house the night before she died, helping with her kids.
So, you think there's some connection there?
I can see why Aunt Margaret's suspicious.
Mom died of a brain aneurysm, which caused her to fall down the stairs. It was an accident, the same way Kathleen was an accident.
Yes, exactly. And isn't that weird?
With so many shocking twists and turns, you might wonder what the defense could have possibly argued. Well, they stuck to Michael's original story that Kathleen had simply fallen.
For the next few weeks, Michael's defense team works to build their case. They insist this was just a drunken accident. And they've uncovered the evidence to prove it.
They largely pinned the oddities of the case on the police, notably claiming that they did a bad job securing the scene. They also pointed to the fact that the prosecution hadn't been able to convincingly identify a murder weapon.
Just imagine going through every box, every book, every crevice, every rafter, every jug, every door. We searched the ground. We searched with metal detectors. We searched with dogs.
Plus, there were no skull fractures, which you would normally find if the cause of death was blunt force trauma. As for the odd links between Kathleen and Elizabeth's deaths, well, they largely chalked it up to coincidence. In other words, the defense's position was that it was all a horrible accident.
All right, well, let's just assume for right now that it's true, which it is.
Still, on October 10th, 2003, the jury declared Michael Peterson guilty, and he was sentenced to life in prison. Importantly, the ruling came without any possibility of parole. Even so, Peterson kept insisting he was innocent.
I know what happened, that I didn't do it. I don't know what happened, but I know that I didn't kill Kathleen. I loved her.
At one point, a strange but interesting theory formed courtesy of Larry Pollard, a lawyer who was the Petersons' neighbor. He suggested that Kathleen's untimely death could have been due to a barred owl attack.
If it was done by a bird, it doesn't meet the definition of a homicide. So therefore, on all legs, this case should be dismissed.
He claimed that this was a fairly common occurrence in their town. He suggested that one of these birds had gone after Kathleen when she entered the home, resulting in her injuries and tragic death.
Bam, back right corner of the head, where 90% of all owl strikes to human beings are.
As far-fetched as it might sound, there is apparently some evidence to support the notion. Tiny feathers and slivers of tree wood were present in clumps of hair in Kathleen's hands.
They are some of the only species of birds in the world that have microscopic feathers.
What's more, the wounds on her head could have been from a talon, especially given their unusual shape.
Look at the lacerations on her head. Looks like a pitchfork sort of a form. Doesn't that look like it could be a talon? And that would explain everything.
Of course, it also raised some questions, like wouldn't Michael have seen or heard a bird big enough to cause a fatality? Peterson's legal team later tried to appeal his case, arguing that the client was entitled to a retrial due to judicial errors.
Judge said this case shows the criminal justice system worked. I disagree with that. This case showed that the criminal justice system didn't work.
But they were unsuccessful at every turn. They even took the matter to the North Carolina Supreme Court, but to no avail. A subsequent motion for a new trial a few years later was also rejected. At this point, it seemed like there was no real possibility that Michael Peterson would ever walk out of prison.
It's very difficult for me to accept the fact that I am a prisoner, a convicted murderer. It's just nonsense.
Things changed drastically in 2011. Indeed, Dwayne Deaver, the case's blood spatter analyst, was fired following an independent audit that caught a slew of mistakes across about 34 of his cases.
Jury relied on Deaver much more than any other evidence to convict Michael.
I was there when Deaver did his tests, and as many takes as he took, he just couldn't replicate the blood spatter.
As it came out later on, Deaver had committed perjury.
He had also supposedly presented misleading evidence at trial and had lied about his qualifications. Thus, Peterson got a new trial and was let out on bail under house arrest.
Really shocking news. Michael Peterson had a shot at getting off.
In 2017, Peterson opted to apply for an Alford plea. This meant that he could continue to assert his innocence while admitting that the evidence was stacked against him.
Didn't have to admit it. He is a convicted felon, but there's a guarantee he'll never go back to prison again, and he'll never be charged again.
He was released with credit for time served, and that was essentially the end of it. Prosecutors reportedly asserted that they hoped this provided, quote, a measure of justice for Kathleen's family. French director Jean-Xavier de Lestrade documented much of the overall case in his 2004 Peabody Award-winning docuseries of the same name, and followed up the story's developments in subsequent years.
When I started filming, I was quite convinced that at the end I will know about him. But after 2 years and a half, I cannot say for sure.
You can find the full work on Netflix. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. The HBO Max show begins in 2017, before flashing back to the pivotal night in 2001. Over the course of the miniseries, audiences see the Petersons' seemingly idyllic life and witness the struggles they'd faced behind closed doors.
I mean, we can't talk to anyone. Family is all we got.
The program goes back and forth between timelines, chronicling the many events that took place in the time following Kathleen's passing. Although there is a gray area given the real trial's outcome, the show's themes seem to be those of truth and justice, much like the French documentary.
You know, it's my life on the line here, and I want to tell my story. You know, tell them how much I loved Kathleen. You know, I deserve to be heard here.
Peterson, who is 78 as of May 2022, currently lives freely.
Do you regret doing the documentary?
I don't know if I would be out today unless it were for that documentary.
In 2019, he was set to be back in North Carolina, living in a home that, as his attorney calculatingly emphasized, had, quote, no stairs. He's also released 2 books about his ordeal called Behind the Staircase and Beyond the Staircase, the proceeds of which were apparently given to charity. As for what really happened that fateful night, we'll probably never truly know.
There were so many reasons to stay riveted to this case, to this very day.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from MsMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.